In the special segment tonight, the impact on kids who actually witness violence. It's there, increasingly on the street, at home, and in school. It turns out the first school shooting of its kind was carried out here in suburban Chicago. What happened in Winnetka would help change the way we diagnose and deal with children faced with violence. What happens to kids is now being compared to the upheaval veterans report when they come home from a war. Witness to violence, innocence lost. Brenda Worship was walking home on the south side of Chicago when a man shot her in the course of a holdup. Her daughter Anita was with her. She is only 12.
He killed my mama. And I watched it.
That's the saddest part. Oh,
I watched it.
He did that in front of my kids.
Anita is now part of an astounding statistic. An estimated 20,000 people are murdered every year in this country. In 20% of the killings, kids are right there. And they see. And every year, an estimated 10 million children see a range of violent acts in their own homes, like Danielle Shipley.
A lot of what happened I blocked out, so I don't remember a lot of that stuff.
Danielle is 18 years old now. When she was only 8, she helped convict her own father, a doctor in Northwest Indiana, and her stepmother, a nurse, for child neglect and murder. They beat and starved Danielle's little sister, Amy, just 5 years old.
I remember minor details. I remember like the house, like I can draw you the floor plan of the house we lived in, but as far as how I felt, I blocked it all out.
They're robbed of their childhood. They're robbed of innocence. They're robbed of knowing that the people in their lives who are supposed to be in charge of keeping them safe have failed them.
Maria Trozzi is director of the Good Grief program at Boston Medical Center that helps families cope. She was on the scene after the shootings at Columbine High School in Colorado. She also counseled children traumatized by the terrorist attacks on the World Trade Center.
There's so much power in adults as well as children being able to talk about the trauma that they experienced.
Violence is violence, whether it's in the Middle East or at 9/11 or in Lawndale, West Chicago.
Eitan Schwarz is assistant professor of psychiatry and behavioral sciences at Northwestern Medical School. Schwarz is also part of Family Focus that helps 10,000 families keep going here in Lawndale and throughout the Chicago area, like Lance Bridges, whose teenage brother was killed in gang violence in Lawndale a year ago.
It took a lot from me. It's like, now I'm like, afraid when I walk the street, so I got to worry about somebody trying to shoot me or not.
Normally what happens is that they go through a period of depression, confusion. Why me?
Jared Cooper has been there for Lance Bridges and knows firsthand the impact of violence. Cooper was only 12 when he saw a murder victim.
It's very vivid in my memory. It's like you see it and you constantly see it over and over again. And so what do you do? I mean, do you crawl up in a shell and die? No, you keep going.
Cooper grew up here in Lawndale, a community that is at last taking hold. New businesses are on the rise and new homes are beginning to edge out the blight. And Benue offers children a diversion and a haven from the violence on the west side.
A lot of our kids have seen drive-by shootings, many types of gang fights in school. It's very common for our youth to witness murders in their community in which they've seen dead bodies on the streets.
Violence is not typically part of the fabric of suburban Winnetka here along the North Shore.
May 20th, 1988 changed me and my life.
That day was also a turning point in the history of mental health for children. Babysitter Lori Dan went on a shooting rampage at Hubbard Woods Elementary School. She killed 8-year-old Nicholas Corwin and wounded 5 people. Bob Williamson's 2 daughters, Claire and Kate, were in school that day.
They did hear the gunshots. One of the children who was wounded wandered into the classroom. I don't know if my younger daughter remembers this, but I remember her telling me she heard him say, "I hope I don't die."
People in Winnetka do not readily talk publicly about what happened here. But the shock of that day is considered the main catalyst for the concept of counseling children, for grief, but also for the more critical, damaging effects of trauma.
it stays with them. It is part of the fabric of their lives. They see the world in some way as capable of producing such a horrific event, and it inevitably alters them.
Tomorrow night at 10, a closer look at the symptoms when kids witness violence. We spent some time with the family of Ricky Birdsong, the Northwestern basketball coach, who was shot to death in suburban Skokie right in front of his kids.
At first, I was angry, like, why would God do something like this to me?
Also, how families can empower themselves and heal. Witness to violence, innocence lost tomorrow night. Interestingly, the kids in that classroom in Winnetka are now graduating from college this year. That's
Good
how
story.
long ago that was. Thanks.
Good story. Thanks, Diane. On the Health Beat tonight, eating a vegetarian. Tonight, the White House admits that before September 11th, President Bush was warned Osama bin Laden might have been planning to hijack airplanes.
Even with a paper trail, the White House is saying the president had no way of knowing that hijackers would use the planes to attack the World Trade Center and Washington.
Good evening. This latest information comes as congressional investigators try to determine whether the government failed to adequately react to indications of potential terrorism.
Now, we'll have more on that story in just a moment, but first we have some breaking news in the far north suburbs. A fire in Zion has killed 4 people.